Chairman, and gentlemen, thank you for the testimony. I want to echo what a number of my colleagues have mentioned. I think it gives American people a lot of comfort to see the two of you leading on our military and Department of Defense efforts, and just want to applaud you for all you're doing and the focus you're given to some of these really important national security issues and what are clearly challenging times. One area where I don't think you've gotten enough, compliments for what you've done is the ISIS strategy. Came in, new strategy, serious strategy, started to implement it, and we're not there yet, but it's, I think it's clearly working. It's clearly reversing what had been a losing battle, and maybe I can ask you to just initially comment on that, because I think the American people aren't fully aware that they are completely on the defensive now, in my view, in large measure to your leadership, your strategy, and of course to the troops who are executing that. Secretary Mattis, care to comment on that, sir?
Senator, the troops have done a yeoman's job out there in enlisting other forces to work alongside us. It's been a very complex battlefield, as you know, but right now ISIS is seeing its fundraising and its recruiting dry up because of what we've done to them on the battlefield. That said, they remain a threat, and we're taking no sense of complacency here, and it's still a full-fledged fight.
Let me ask next, now you've put together another strategy. I think a lot of us view it in a similarly positive manner. You talk a lot about the regional strategy. I think that's actually really important with regard to Afghanistan, and your focus, which I think is actually critically important, on India, matters not only to Afghanistan but to other challenges that we're seeing throughout the country. I think they can be an incredibly important strategic partner of ours. We share similar values, oldest, largest democracies in the world working together. Can you give me a sense, Mr. Secretary, on your recent trip, not only with regard to the importance that India could play with regard to our Afghanistan policy, but other challenges, say China's aggressive actions in the South China Sea and the rise of China, and maybe looking at India as a partner on some of those key issues where our interests align?
Well, Senator, your point about where our interests align is very, very indicative of the current situation we find ourselves in. What we have right now, Senator, is a strategic convergence, generational opportunity between the two largest democracies in the world to work together based on those shared interests of peace, of prosperity, of stability in the region. And India is coming into its own. It's going to be a global player. And I think this is quite right as Prime Minister Modi takes them forward economically to a much higher level of living for his people, to a bigger role in the world. And that role, from our perspective, is a wholly positive one right now. And I think we are natural partners, India and the United States, and we recognize each other's sovereignty. We have respect for each other, but we also see the opportunity we're presented with right now.
So it's safe to say your meetings went well in India recently?
The meetings could not have gone better, Senator.
Great. Let me turn to North Korea, like a number of my colleagues. A lot of concern on that. I, for one, very much appreciate your regular briefings that you've had with this committee. I think they've been constructive. I think they're helping bring both members, Democrats and Republicans, into trying to help with regard to that policy strategy, a very challenging national security issue, as we all know. The main effort then continues to be diplomacy. I know you've been asked this a number of times, but I just want to reiterate that simple yes or no answer on that.
It's diplomatically led, Senator, by Secretary Tillerson. There are economic sanctions that you've seen demonstrated by the unanimous UN Security Council resolutions. How often do we find Russia, China, the United States, France, others all voting as one It shows the degree of acceptance that this is an international threat, and people are working together imperfectly, but working together to try to address it. And we will continue to maintain a Department of Defense that looks toward the defense of our people and the defense of our allies with military options on the table.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one final quick question on part of our strategy. It's become apparent that the President and the two of you and others have been talking about how critical missile defense is as a key element of our strategy, not just dealing with North Korea, but rogue nations like Iran. As you know, in the NDAA, we had a number of provisions to advance our nation's missile defense. I know that the administration is looking at additional measures. Could you describe those, General or Mr. Secretary, both in terms of what you want to do, how we can be supportive? I think one of the breakthroughs that you saw in the NDAA this year is missile defense is no longer a partisan issue. It's being viewed very much as a bipartisan issue, and I think that's important. I think you'll get a lot of support for what you want to be doing on missile defense. We just need to know exactly what you want to be doing to advance it in the near term, which I think we need to do more to advance it in the near term.
Senator, we've enjoyed bipartisan support up here on the Hill. You'll notice that the budget for this has increased in the out years and the years ahead. We're optimistic we'll get a budget by December that will help, but also the reprogramming approved by the Senate and the House here allowed us basically $440 million more in FY17 dollars to reprogram to get buy more of the ground-based interceptors, increase the number of sensors, and the emphasis in the near term is exactly where you indicated, and you'll see it reflected in the budget that we submit for your consideration in the future.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.